Okay, on this 944 to V8 conversion here, I'm going to talk about a couple of things that we're going to do to this engine. Like we've said before, just for the simplicity of it for right now, since we're doing kind of a very basic conversion, we're going to use carburetor, and we have an MSD 6014, I think is what it is, that runs off of the cam sensor, the crank sensor, which is under there by the back of the motor, and it fires these original coils. And doesn't seem to be anything wrong with these coils or anything, so we're going to run them. One issue we do have, though, is this is a 2013 motor, so it has displacement on demand. What that means is this plug here gets connected to, I believe it's 4 solenoids under this valley cover. And what those solenoids do is either keep oil from going to or push oil to, I guess it's 8 of the lifters. So when it diverts oil pressure, the lifters are just, dead fish. They flop around in there. And that effectively gives you 0 lift at 4 of the cylinders, turning this into a 4-cylinder engine for when you're just puttering down the highway, your foot's off the gas, you're idling or whatever. So we don't want those things in this motor, because this is not a modern car that needs displacement on demand or anything. So there are kits that have O-rings and other stupid stuff to put inside your engine, which I'm not a big fan of. So what we're going to do, since this engine already makes plenty of power, I mean, I was just looking at the specs for it today, it's 362 horsepower, and I think it's 375 pound-feet of torque, just the way it is now with stock fuel injection, stock cam, and everything. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a set of LS7 lifters in it, which are just normal lifters. Unfortunately, you have to remove the heads to do that. And while we have the heads off, we're going to put a set of PAC 1218 springs with the stock retainers, stock valves, and everything. We're not going to do anything other than change the springs. Then we have to have the engine on the engine stand anyway to remove the stock oil pan and put the Renegade Hybrids oil pan on. So while that's in there and we have the engine flipped upside down, we're going to drill and tap the oil passages in the valley that lead to those solenoids. And we're just going to put threaded plugs in there, which would be a standard thing you do inside of an engine if you wanted to plug an oil hole. To me, that seems much more reliable than these special valley covers that they sell with the O-rings in them. I mean, I just don't trust O-rings inside a motor when you're talking about oil pressure. It's just a thing of mine, so if I can avoid that, we're gonna. So that seems like a simple way to do it. And one thing we're not going to do is change the cam. I mean, we're going to look at it when we have the lifters out and the heads off. Make sure it's okay. Make sure there's no signs of excessive wear or anything. But we're just going to leave this stock cam in here. And this motor will run fine and make plenty of power with the stock cam that's in it. And I actually looked up the cam specs today. Because I had been looking at cams to swap into this thing for a while, and I couldn't make up my mind. And then I figured today, well, you know, let's see what's already in it. So it turns out the intake lift is 478 thousandths. The exhaust lift is 466 thousandths, which that's pretty healthy. The cam timing is a little conservative. It has 196 intake duration and 208 exhaust duration. It's a 116 cam lobe center, which is fine. I actually like that because that means it'll have a lot of vacuum at idle. It'll pull, you know, right when you let the clutch out, you know, it'll pull real nice, which is essential for this car because I'm going to drive it. I'm going to drive it to work, you know, every day that I can. And I have to sit in some stop and go traffic. So if you have something that revs to, you know, 7,000 RPMs or whatever, and, you know, lopes along there at idle, and you're like nudging it along at 2 miles an hour in traffic, that would make it so that I wouldn't want to drive the car. So I'm thinking LS7 lifters. We'll put the Pack 1218 springs on there just because we'll have the heads off. And if we ever want to swap the cam in the future, then we're just swapping the cam. So that's my thoughts on the engine. As far as modification goes, we're not really going to do anything else to it. The AC compressor is going to come off of it because we're not going to do AC for another year. The alternator mount is fine. It'll have no power steering, so basically what you see right there is what we will be running, except we're probably going to have an idler on this side and that side, just to spin the water pump the right way and, you know, get the belt to the alternator. I wanted to mock up one of the headers on here. Turned out I had to take the motor mount off of this side to get the header on here. So that's the Renegade short headers, and they're ceramic coated. They're pretty nice. But this motor, being that it's an Australian Holden Commodore V8, and it was in a cop car, it has an oil cooler on it. This here is a liquid to liquid oil cooler. So those lines have coolant running through them, and they go through this little plate heat exchanger, and oil flows through there. But as you can see, ain't gonna work with these headers. Almost. I mean, if that was in like a ½ an inch, it would have some clearance. You'd probably have to heat shield it though, because this is going to get really hot. So not sure what we're going to do about that yet, if we're just going to plug it all off, or if we're going to try to put a different oil cooler on. I don't know. We'll have to see how this is mounted. I mean, if all else fails, we might be able to just relocate this. So we'll see about that. Well, that's about all for this project today. Maybe we'll get some more stuff done on it tomorrow. Oh, I did just order all those parts I just talked about, the springs and lifters, and a new temperature sensor, a new water pump, a 174 degree thermostat we're putting in it, and a bunch of other stuff. And I also ordered for the car today a brand new manual steering rack conversion that a guy out in Colorado sells. So yeah, that way we're not messing with the power rack and trying to change the lines on it and, you know, pumping grease in it and all that stuff. It'll be a brand new rack, brand new tie rod ends, and you just have to set the toe and let it go. Well, that's it.